Hello, I'm Kyla and welcome back to the Infinite Library. And today in this video we're going to be doing a little thing that I don't know if it's going to become a series. It might be something I do every year potentially, but I am righting my wrongs from the previous year, by which I mean I am reading the books that I was sure I was going to get to last year, was determined I was going to get to last year in terms of new releases, and for whatever reason, I didn't. So I have gone back, I have watched my original most anticipated books I had for that year video here, and I've picked out some of the ones that I was most excited for. Some of them I did read, and then some of them were just ones that I kind of lost interest once they actually came out. But yeah, I have a bunch that I picked from that video, and then a bunch that are just other ones that I was just really hyped about last year and never got to. So this is me righting my wrongs. I'm gonna read those books that I was so excited about and find out if they're actually good or not. A couple of them I actually do already have in my physical TBR, which is even more shameful, to be honest, that I never got to them. So I have 4 here that were already ones I own. A lot of these are fantasy, but I also have a romance, a mystery, and a horror as well, just to kind of shake things up a little bit. The first book is The Spellshop by Sarah Beth Durst. This was really kicking off last year. It was actually the book club book for at least one readathon I was in last year, and I fully intended to get to it. And I just never did. I just never had time. This is a cozy fantasy. It does have romance. It is about a witch, and I believe she a potted plant that she speaks to or something. Oh, she's a sentient spider plant called Kaz, who is assistant. It sounds super cute. Everyone has been saying how good it is, and I, for some reason, missed the boat on it. So I am going to be picking this up, definitely. Another book, which is also one I kept meaning to get to last year, was A Tempest of Tea. I've got the Waterstones special edition, which I kind of prefer to the special editions out there. I really love the original colour. This is by Hafsa Faisal. I've heard mixed things about this. Like, a lot of people that have read it didn't actually seem to be that crazy on it, even though it was getting a lot of hype when it first came out. But a friend of mine did say they really loved it. And I do want to try this author, and everything about this book sounds completely up my alley. It's like an urban fantasy, I assume set a little bit back in time, just judging by the clothing here of our main girl Arfi. And it is about Arfi, who runs a illegal blood house, tea room by day and a blood house by night catering for vampires, and she must lead a gang of outcasts in a high-stakes heist to the sinister vampire underworld, which sounds really fun, and it's not even that long. So yeah, no idea why I didn't get to this one. Next we have the romance that I was the most excited for last year and then didn't read. Late Bloomer by Maisie Eddings. This just sounds freaking adorable. It's sapphic. It's extremely cottagecore. I just love everything about the cover. It's about this girl called Opal who wins the lottery and decides to follow her dreams because of that, and she decides to spend her money on a failing flower farm in North Carolina, where she can start a painting business. However, things go awry because the farm's actual owner isn't happy about it. So yeah, and I'm guessing they end up falling for each other. Sounds super cute. And then finally we have a YA. We have Where Sleeping Girls Lie by Farida Abike-Iyamide. This is the author of Ace of Spades, which I liked but didn't love enough to want to sort of keep. But the premise with this one sounds so much more up my alley. It's dark academia, mystery thriller is kind of what she does. I don't know if this is supernatural or not, or if it's just a dark academia mystery thriller. But it is about a new girl called Sade who starts at school, and then her roommate goes missing on her first night. Suddenly everyone is talking about her, including the unholy trinity, the 3 most popular girls at school, and then a student is found dead. So yeah, it sounds really exciting, and I did enjoy Ace of Spades quite a lot. Oh, I just opened it to a page that just says "I'm sorry" over and over and over and over again. I think I listened to the first chapter of this on Spotify. I was intrigued by it, so yeah, excited to get to this. So those 4 are the ones I own physically. I then have a couple of others that I'm going to order in from the library. One I think I have to buy, unfortunately, though. But the only other one that I don't actually own, which was from my most anticipated video, is The Marble Queen. This is a sapphic graphic novel, sounds super cute, love the art. Everything about this sounds up my alley. It's about a princess who ends up having to make like a political marriage, only she finds out that it's a princess that she is marrying, or the prince's sister that she is betrothed to, rather than the prince as she was expecting. So it sounds really fun. And then we have a horror which had a lot of hype last year. We Used to Live Here. I am really interested in this one, and it is getting a movie adaptation, I believe, and I just kind of want to be ahead of the movie and actually read this. A lot of people's favourite horror of last year. So that one definitely I'm really excited to get to. Then we have The God of the Woods. This won the Goodreads mystery thriller, although I also believe it's very mixed for a lot of people. It's got more a weird element to it, I believe, a historical element as well, and it is not a traditional mystery thriller, which I think means it's probably up my alley, because I'm not crazy on mystery thrillers unless they get kind of weird and different. So hoping that this one will kind of hit the mark for me. Another fantasy is A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle Jensen. I actually do have some of her Bridge Kingdom books, but this was the book that was seemed to be getting so much hype last year, and I'm not really massive on like Viking fantasy, so I don't know if it's for me, but I want to give it a try at the very least, because it seemed to be, a lot of people seem to really like it. And the final book I want to read is a memoir, actually, and that is Sociopath. Super interested in this one as soon as it came out. It sounds like a really intriguing book. I do love reading memoirs, and this was probably the one that came out last year that I had the most interest in. So those are all the books that I'm hoping to get to in this video. I might not get to them all. I'm sort of filming this over a long period of time, so I'm not trying to like read all these books in a week. A lot of them will be read whenever they happen to come in from the library, to be honest, as some of these have really long holds. So I don't know which book I'm going to be starting just yet, although the audiobook is currently available on BorrowBox for A Tempest of Tea, so I'm tempted to start with this one first, but you will see whenever the next clip appears. So I'm gonna get reading and righting my wrongs. Hello, the first update for this video, I decided to start with A Tempest of Tea. I was just really in the mood for this. I also had the audiobook from BorrowBox, and I listened to the first 2 chapters, and the audiobook is fine, but I'm going to switch to reading physically, I think, because I'm really enjoying the writing, and I think I'm missing stuff with the audiobook, so I want to like read this properly with my eyes. I'm actually going to do this one physically, but I'm enjoying it so far. We're just being introduced this cast of characters that run this tea room slash blood house that caters to vampires in the evening. Arthur, who is our main girl here, had like a bit of an altercation with one of the vampire patrons in the first chapter, and then we're just sort of like getting the idea of what the tea house is. We're getting to know her friend Jin, who I assume kind of runs it with her. I'm enjoying it so far. I really like the writing, so I think it's going to be a good time. Hello, so the first book has been read for this video. I did indeed start with A Tempest of Tea. Probably did see a couple of updates, but I didn't really update too much whilst I was reading this. This was fun. I did quite like this. The characters were really fun. I was definitely getting the whole we're a fun crew, I guess, vibe from it. It was split into like 3 different POVs, even though there are like 5 people in the crew. We mostly see Arthur, her kind of best friend, adoptive brother Jin, and this girl called Flick, who is very new to it and has just been brought into the crew because of her talents as a forger, and she has like, a complicated relationship with her mother as well, which has some bearings on the plot. Overall, I did enjoy this. I think there were certain elements of it that was kind of putting me off. I was getting kind of frustrated with the romance stuff that kept coming up. I don't hate the actual romances between the characters, but it started to get a little bit irritating, to be honest, because it just kept doing this thing over and over again where they keep noticing how hot the other person is and they're like distracted by it and they're like trying to ignore it. And I've seen that trope done so often and it's just kind of annoying. I don't mind it done like once or twice, but like literally throughout the whole book it feels like the characters, because there's 4 of them, that are kind of having these feelings. And it just got really repetitive and it got really annoying. I'm just not crazy on that kind of thing. I don't really get it, the whole I'm noticing you constantly and I think you're so hot, but oh, I shouldn't notice. So yeah, that let it down for me a little bit. It started to make the characters a little bit frustrating to me because they were generally quite smart and to the point otherwise. I got that this was kind of like supposed to be an unusual thing for Arfi, that she was experiencing these feelings, but I did just find it kind of frustrating. The heist itself was a little too quick, I think, and I wasn't really keen on how it ended up ending after all the build up. Like, you want the heist to be really good, and it definitely had like the movie like kind of element because it was very short chapters constantly switching between the different character points. But yeah, for me, I think it just kind of fell apart in the ending. I don't know if it's just that I wasn't completely understanding the world lore and all the stuff with like the ram, but it did lose me a little bit with what was happening. Some of the reveals were quite good, I liked them, but then it kept having different things happening over and over and over, and it just felt a little bit dissatisfying. And yeah, I didn't love the ending, unfortunately. I think it just lost me towards the end, and I feel like if that hadn't have happened, this would have been like a low 4 for me, but I think because of how the ending really just confused me, to be honest, I have to give this a 3.75. I don't know if I'm going to carry this series on, to be honest. I believe it's going to be duology, and the second book is coming out in September, so I have time to think about it, I suppose. I don't know, like, I liked the characters, but I didn't love them. I kind of feel at the moment that I could like take or leave the sequel. I just don't really know if I'm invested enough to want to carry it on, but I am intrigued to see if the plot will be better and it will kind of make things clearer to me in the second book, because it drops some really interesting stuff and the lore and the world building is really interesting. Definitely there were a lot of hints that were talking about stuff that is in Hafsa Faisal's other series, which We Hunt the Flame. I think it's called Sands of Ariwa or something, and I do have the first book of that, but I haven't read it yet, and I'm wondering if maybe some of the stuff with Leif, one of the guys who is from that country, might have made a little bit more sense to me, and there's maybe some lore from those books that I'm kind of not understanding because I didn't read them before Tempest of Tea. I didn't realise this was going to be set in the same world, to be honest, because it's a very different sort of setting from the more desert location that is in We Hunt the Flame. So I don't know if that's why I'm missing a few bits, but I think maybe the plot was just kind of clumsily told towards the end, and the author was throwing like just stuff and stuff and stuff and information at you, and it just kind of lost me. So that's unfortunate. I'm glad I finally got to it. And yeah, I don't know if I'm going to carry this one on. I might. I'm going to see how I feel, I think, when it comes out. Maybe watch a few reviews, see if they think the plot is better, because that's the issue for me for this. It's not the characters, it is the plot, and that's what kind of lost me. I mean, I am interested in that it looks like it's saying in the second book, I think it's called A Seeping Blood. Here is the cover for it, which is gorgeous, by the way. It looks like they're going back to Arfi's original homeland of Kaelin, and that sounds interesting. I kind of like the change of setting. Obviously stuff happened towards the end here, which is drastically changing the relationships, presumably, of the characters. So yeah, a bit of a weird one. I just don't quite know how I feel about this one. I just know that I think I really wanted to love it, and it just kind of missed the mark for me, unfortunately. But that is one book down, at least, so I finally read Tempest of Tea. Next, I'm not sure which book I'm going to go with. I did actually pick up another blood book from the library recently, so let me go and pick up those. So I did pick up a copy of Fatington Blood, finally, from the library. This came in. The paperback is so different from the original hardcover. It's very boring looking. I would not have been drawn to pick this up, to be honest. So I may pick this one up yet, although I'm a little unsure because it's romantasy. I don't know if I'm in the mood for that. Oh, pretty, look. It's got, like, pictures kind of through the text on the chapter headings, which, is it always X's or does it change? Oh my gosh, I've just seen that someone is called Snorri in this, and that's kind of hilarious because I just finished reading the second book in the Prince of Fools series by Mark Lawrence, and the other kind of protagonist in that book is called Snorri, so I'm probably gonna be seeing him whenever he shows up. But yeah, this is a Viking romantasy. It is about a woman called Freya who is basically trapped into an unwanted marriage, but then he makes a deal with their ruler and she's forced into a fight to the death. To survive, she must reveal her deepest secret. She possesses a drop of a goddess's blood, a magic that will unite their nation beneath the ones who controls her fate. Believing she's destined to be king, the ruler binds Freya with a blood oath and orders his fierce but charming son to train her to fight to control her magic and to make sure no one lays a hand on her. So, yeah, basically she's married to this guy's father and she's probably going to fall for the guy, which is kind of icky to me. Like, granted, she doesn't like the father, but I don't know how I feel about this one, but I am going to give it a try. I don't know if I'll read this one next or if I'll pick up one of the other ones I have, but you'll find out in the next clip, I guess. So I did indeed decide to start Fate Inked in Blood last night, and yeah, I got through quite a lot last night. I was kind of surprised. It doesn't look like it, but I made 80 pages into this and I am actually fairly enjoying it so far. It's easy to read. I do like the main character a lot. I'm intrigued to where this is going. I'm not super invested in where I think the romance is going, however. It's doing this thing which I find really annoying where the main guy is just constantly being swooned over by like every single woman and they're just talking constantly like about how great he is in bed, and that seems to be his only defining trait, which I'm not crazy on. Like, he's been fairly flirtatious, but he has been kind of helping the main character, and it's a little bit frustrating, I suppose. A lot has happened to her so far, and I have to say, she's got some balls. I was like yelling in glee at like one specific thing she does when she's being taken away to marry the Jarl leader, and she does something which I'm not going to say what it is, but it's so good and honestly raised her so high in my esteem. I was finding her maybe a little bit annoying before that point because she was very much just kind of complaining about her life but not really doing anything about it, which I do understand given the time she's in that she can't, and she's been placed under certain restrictions relating to her magic, which is also to do with that. But yeah, I really enjoyed a specific thing. I'm enjoying it so far. I'm very glad that the whole thing of her marrying the Jarl hasn't taken a certain kind of turn I was really worried it was going to. I was worried this was going to go into an essay storyline, and it thankfully is not, which I'm very happy about that, because that was one thing I was feeling very icky about, because the whole thing is that she is forced to marry the Jarl of the village because she has this magic that basically there is a prophecy saying that if her fate is tied with that of another person, he will be the king. So the Jarl wants to be king, so he's marrying her for that reason, but he actually has a wife already who he really loves and genuinely has no interest in the main character in a romantic or sexual way. And I kind of really appreciated that because it really felt like it was going to go down that really horrible path, and she's kind of already had that with her first husband, so I didn't want to see this repeat. But thankfully it didn't go down that, and that also in turn makes the romance that I'm assuming is going to be happening with Bjorn, who is the son of the Jarl, much less icky. And not a whole lot has happened. We've learned about the prophecy. She's just got married to the guy, and I guess we're going to find out what happens from there. But I'm actually reasonably enjoying it so far, aside from some of the stuff that is about the guy like really kind of putting me off. I don't know if I'm going to enjoy the romance is the thing, but we will see. But otherwise, it's well written. It's an easy read so far, and it hasn't been as like potentially icky as I was kind of worried it was going to be, so that is a plus. Hello, so an update. I have been making progress on a Fate Inked in Blood. I am getting close to the halfway point now. I'm about 130, 140 pages in. It's fine. I'm honestly kind of getting a little bit bored. The plot is not really moving very fast. We're getting a lot of repetition. I just really don't like this romance between the main guy and the main girl. It just seems very insta-lust. And I'm actually starting to like the main girl less now because I'm not liking some of the action she's doing now when I did like it earlier. So I don't know how I'm going to feel about this one. I'm going to keep going with it and give it more of a chance. I want to at least get past the halfway point. But right now, it's not really holding my interest, to be honest, which is kind of what I had a suspicion it was going to be like with this one. Okay, I read another 50 pages of a Fate Inked in Blood. I'm DNFing this. This just isn't for me, I don't think. I'm always very much a character person and I just don't really care about what's happening. I care nothing for this romance between the two main characters and I'm just not interested. So yeah, I gave it a good try, but this is gonna be a DNF from me. Did kind of live up to my expectation that maybe wasn't the book for me. So we're gonna move on to the next book, which hopefully I'm going to enjoy much more. I'm going to add an addendum to this actually because I realised I didn't really explain properly the issues I was having with this, other than that it wasn't really interesting me. Part of it is the main reason that I'm having, other than like the historical context and stuff, is not really my kind of thing. I'm not really into Viking stuff. It's not really something I gravitate towards. Although I have read and liked books that are set in that setting, most notably Sister Song and Song of the Huntress by Lucy Holland. My main issue, I think, is the romance between these two characters, because this is romantasy, which means it is unfortunately very heavily linked in with the plot and there's a lot of focus on it. There is constant repetition of them being brought in close proximity, of certain body parts pushing against each other, that kind of thing, which is a little bit annoying, to be honest, when it keeps happening. It's like akin to that thing like when you see a guy write a girl and he's just always describing how she's breasting boobily, and it kind of feels a little bit like that at some points. And I'm just very frustrated with the banter between the two as well. I feel like it's just supposed to be this witty banter that people really enjoy between two characters. Like, they're not enemies to lovers, that's not really what they are, but they're just kind of sniping at one another constantly, and if they're not sniping, they're just doing double entendre at each other, because clearly are just constantly always objectifying the other person. It just doesn't really get me invested in the two of them as a relationship. Like, I would like Bjorn a lot more if he was described in any way that wasn't just about his physical looks constantly and everyone saying how great his sexual prowess is. Like, I'm sure there's more to him, but we're really not seeing very much of it. Freya is definitely the more interesting of the two. I can't say, unfortunately, like, after that intro, I'm not really rooting for her. I'm just not invested. I'm not invested in their relationship as a storyline in this book. It's not one that I really want to pursue any further because it's just not the kind of thing I like, really. I hope that makes a little bit more sense in terms of why I'm DNFing this one. Hello, so I am currently doing the tarot reader farm. It is a couple of days before Summerween, and I pulled a card that basically was a prompt to tell me to read a book that had rich people drama or people with money in it. So I think it's time to read Late Bloom. I'm actually really in the mood for this right now. It is summer, it's nice and warm, and in a couple of days it's going to be Summerween, which means I'm going to be primarily reading horrors and thrillers for a solid week. So this feels like a good time to pick up something what's probably going to be a cozy romance before going into that. So yeah, I am pretty excited to read this one. This was like my most anticipated romance of last year. And I really hope I like it because I feel like I've tried a couple of contemporary sapphic books before and haven't really been bothered about them. So I'm really putting it all on this one to be really good. So we have a plus size protagonist here who is a girl who I believe is like really nice, and she wins the lottery and people try to take advantage of her because of that. So she ends up kind of running away and buying this flower farm, but it turns out there's someone who already was running the flower farm. She goes to North Carolina, she was in New York, and she wants to start a painting business and just kind of isolate herself basically from the world. But unfortunately, Pepper Bowden, who I'm guessing is the brown hair girl here, is not happy about this because it's her farm originally. So there's not much else they can do except strike up an agreement of cohabitation. So they're stuck in the same place together, and while they each have a reason to stay, can these two opposites find a way to plant some roots? Or will the combustible arguing and growing attraction burn the whole place down? It sounds good. This author has wrote of a romance before, but looking at the covers, they look like they're straight romance. So I don't know if this is the first like actual sapphic romance this author has written, but I'm excited and I just hope I'm gonna like it really, because I would really like to read just a really cute cozy romance where I kind of just root for the characters. These two already aesthetically are kind of giving me Honey Witch, the couple from those vibes. So that is kind of the vibe I want from this. We shall see. Okay, figured I should update you because I'm about 70 or so pages into this and I'm liking this so far. It's quite an easy read. I am reasonably liking the main two characters, even though Opal being something of a bit of a wet blanket, but realising that I'm trying to change is not always something I like. Also interesting, which I didn't realise, is that both of the girls are neurodivergent. So that was something that wasn't really specified, but I'm really glad to see the representation in here. And yeah, it's fun so far. I'm liking it. I like their dynamic and I'm enjoying it. Hello, I'm here to update you because I finished Late Bloomer. This took me like a day to read or something. It was really quick. I think honestly I was just really in the mood for this type of book right now and I did actually quite enjoy it. It's not the best romance I've ever read. I don't think the story was particularly massively original. I thought both of the characters were fine. I liked them. I liked the romance. I was rooting for them. I liked how it dealt with neurodivergency and how that had a big effect on how Pepper dealt with things. And yeah, overall, I liked it. I don't think it was like the best thing ever I've read. I'm glad I finally got to this, but it didn't like blow me away or anything. It didn't really make me super emotional, to be honest, which I feel like a romance should for me to be like really loving it. It sounds crazy, but like I did kind of prefer the Ali Hazelwood books that I read for the Goodreads because they really got me emotionally. And this was just fun. Like I had a good time whilst reading it. I enjoyed it. But that's kind of all there was to it. I think it didn't really leave a massive impression on me. And that's fine because sometimes those are just the right books for the mood you're in. I don't need everything to like blow me away. This was great for what I wanted it to be, but it wasn't like amazing or anything, unfortunately. So I would probably give this like a 3.75. Not bad, just also not amazing. It was good. I had a good time with it. But am I desperate to go back to this book, try other things by this author? Probably not. This might even be one that I get rid of. I'm not really sure at the moment. It might be one that I decide to go back to, but as I said, it didn't really have a massive emotional impact on me, but I did enjoy my time with it whilst I was reading it. And it didn't outstay its welcome, which is good. It's a fairly breezy, like 350 page-ish sort of book. I felt the pacing and that was fine. So not really a very extensive review for this one, but that's just kind of how I felt about it. I felt like it did some things well, I liked them, but a little bit no thoughts head empty, to be honest, with my thoughts for this one. So that is the second book, however, read for this challenge. And yeah, I'm glad I finally got to this. It was good. I enjoyed it. I just didn't love it. So I think the next book I'm going to go for is going to be in a completely different vein. And my copy of Sociopath just arrived in at the library yesterday and I picked it up. So this is a memoir of sorts by the author Patrick Gagne, who is a sociopath. Looking at the back, they kind of are trying to be an advocate for people suffering with various, I can't see because the label is like right over the blurb, but yeah, an advocate for people with different sociopathic, psychopathic and other like mental disorders essentially. So she obviously has researched this and obviously has her own lived experience. I've heard this is good. I'm just really intrigued by it, to be honest. It's been a little while since I've read a memoir, so I am looking forward to this. And yeah, something that is pretty different in terms of tone. It's actually set up into like 3 different parts. So we have part 1, which split by age groups, but I can't really tell, to be honest. But yeah, there's 3 parts and an epilogue. I'm very interested in this. I don't really know a whole lot about sociopathic behavior, so I'm actually quite interested to explore that from like outside of the very typical media depictions of their horrible killers, basically, because this is going to be a much more nuanced approach and obviously not about that. So yeah, I'm interested to see where this is going to go for sure. Hello, so I'm here to give my first update from reading Sociopath. I'm not really that far in. I'm maybe about 50 pages in, 4 chapters, and I am liking this so far. But I will say, I'm finding this to be a hard read. I think this is going to have to be one I take my time with. I'm really like, enjoying is not the right word. I am immersed, I suppose, when I'm actually reading it, but this very much to me feels a lot like a book that I actually read a couple of months back. Not in a bad way, but like the vibe it's kind of feeling like to me, which was strong female character. But basically, she wrote about her experience growing up, living and learning about her being autistic. And this is kind of a similar kind of thing. In both cases, I struggled to relate personally with how the person was feeling. I found it absolutely fascinating. But being in that other person's head is not like a fun time. It's kind of exhausting to be there, and that's why this is not a book that I'm gonna be able to read fast. I want to take this in properly, and to do that I cannot read this quickly because it is an uncomfortable place in the head to be in the head of someone who struggles to feel emotions because there are certain emotions which are just not really present in their mental state. And for me, who's someone who is very emotional, someone who's very empathetic, it is like the total opposite to how I think. So it's really interesting, and I've got to praise the author as well for not shying away from like the darkness of how she is thinking. She's still a child at the moment. She's between 11 and 14, I think, realizing that she is not normal, not that there is any sort of state as normal really, but basically that her behavior is not aligning to what things that people expect from her. Like her mother is so confused by her, she's getting angry with her, and she just doesn't understand why her daughter is not behaving in the way that she expects her to, and she's not really examining it, which is kind of sad. I understand because probably at the time of when this came out, and due to things that are going on with her mother too, like not blaming her mother, but she's figured out there's something like different about her daughter, but she's not really talking with her daughter about it. She's basically just telling her to do stuff, and this was working for her at first because she loves her mother, and the restrictions of her mother basically telling her how to behave, this is the right way to behave, is stopping her from doing certain things, but she's still really struggling with these impulses towards doing like bad things, towards doing violent things, and she's feeling like it's pressure every time until she has to release it in some way. And yeah, it's really interesting. As I say, I'm not enjoying it, but I'm really discovering so much about a mental health condition that I don't really know very much about, to be honest, because as I said, the media representation is so often just like they're killers, I think. And it's nice to see this with someone who is struggling with this, who is basically, again, this is why I compare it to a strong female character, is because she's learning that the way she's behaving is not considered acceptable by other people, and they don't understand her and they alienate her because of it. So she is realizing that she has to mask how she actually is and pretend she is other than she is. Her mother was always like, tell the truth all the time, and she's trying to do that, but she's being punished for it. So yeah, interesting. She's hit a point now basically where she's like, I can't be myself anymore. I have to make a new start. I have to pretend to be other than what I am. Otherwise, I'm never gonna like make connections with people. It's a tough read, but I am glad I'm reading it. It's just not something I can read for very long, I don't think, because it is just a very uncomfortable topic, and it's inside the head of someone who is so different from how I think. That is my thoughts so far on this. The writing is fine. She's talking almost as if it's like a story, like she's in the moment very much. She's not really looking back on it. She's very much like, I am 6 and this is what's happening right now. I'm finding it fine to read otherwise in terms of the writing style. Font is so tiny in this book though. Otherwise, that is my thoughts so far on this book. I'll check back in once I've read a little bit more, which could be a while, to be honest. I'm about to go into Summerween now, and already I'm kind of like glad to have a break from reading this. As I said, not because I don't want to read it, I do, but I need to not be in this person's head for too long at a time because it is tiring, which is what I found with strong female character as well. I was just like, this mental condition where you're having to cross-examine yourself constantly. It's so exhausting. Hello, yes, elephant in the room. I spontaneously dyed my hair like a weird lilac-y purple, at the moment. I just wanted to change. But I did finish Sociopath last night. I was really struggling with this one, and I think I was just kind of wanting it to be done, so I ended up just sitting last night and finishing it off. And yeah, I didn't really enjoy this one all that much. I think I'm giving it a 3, a low 3 maybe. There's definitely some discourse online, I believe, about the validity of Patrick's academia. Some people don't really agree with the way she talks about things, how she kind of makes herself appear better than she is in the book, and it just being kind of unrealistic in terms of a lot of events that happen. I don't really know one way or another, to be honest. I can see how certain things are unrealistic. I do really appreciate how she is really trying to shine a light on sociopathy and trying to break down those boundaries of what people think about it. Also though, I can kind of see what people are saying online about how things like autism was never considered as a potential diagnosis for her as well. But anyway, this is about sociopathy. Yeah, I just don't think this was for me. I wasn't comfortable at all reading this book. I found it hard to be in Patrick's head, I think, and it also just didn't really grip me that much, to be honest. Like, the fact she is writing this book, I think, adds a little bit of artificiality to it, I suppose, because you know that she got to a point where she was able to write this book, I suppose, no matter how bad things got. And presumably, you know, she didn't end up, like, committing any crimes that were too bad that she got in prison for it. I just didn't really enjoy this one, I've got to say. It's a shame because I really thought this was going to be such an interesting memoir, and it was interesting, but it just wasn't one that I personally really enjoyed. Again, one that I'm glad I just got from the library, to be honest, rather than buying. I do hope there's people out there that this does really hit for. You know, if there's someone that struggles with the kind of personality type that Patrick is describing here. And it is interesting to find out the history of how sociopathy was not even considered a mental condition for such a long time, how it is often interchangeable with psychopathy. So certain things like that were interesting, but yeah, I don't know, I just wasn't very crazy on this one. Again, I feel like I'm starting to get a pattern in this video of me reading these books that I was kind of excited for, and they're not that great. Or at least I'm not really enjoying them. So we're gonna keep going, and hopefully I will get at least 1 or 2 wins in this video. I really hope so, because some of the next books I have are the ones that I think I hopefully have better luck of really enjoying. Like, romance is always a genre that can be hit or miss for me. This was in the non-fiction kind of spectrum, I suppose, which is never always going to be my favourite genre, even though I do like memoirs, but this was definitely a lot more on the academic side. It felt very much that we didn't really know anything about the person who Patrick is, aside from her being a sociopath. And I was a little bit like, surely there are other things in your life that you like and love and all that kind of thing, but it never really kind of came up. But yeah, I'm hopeful that at least some of the other books might be a win for me. Prayer circle, please. How is this the first time I've looked at this book and finally realised this is a cat? That's so cute. What the hell? Hello, I have started the Spellshop, so I thought I'd give you a bit of an update. I started this like 2 days ago. I'm not super far in. 120 pages or something. Just hit chapter 12. I'm really enjoying this so far, actually, which I'm really relieved about. The setting is so cute. Definitely somewhere that is like a dream place to live. I'm actually quite liking the backstory for the main character, Kiela, in this as well. Like, she is kind of like this reclusive librarian who has had to flee her library, basically stole a bunch of books so that they wouldn't get ransacked because a revolutionary is taking over the city, and she's just fled with a bunch of crates of books, and her assistant is a sentient spider plant who is amazingly more anxious than she is. I feel like it's supposed to be like a little bit of a manifestation of her anxiety a little bit. What I really like about this is not that she's just fled to like a random village and is having to discover everything there. She's actually fled back to what is her childhood home. So much of this is like tinged with her remembering stuff, with her realizing things about her past that she just kind of forgotten about because she just cut herself off from the world, and she's remembering things about her parents, about herself, I suppose, back when she was younger, and she is like taking to this like so well. The only thing I find a little bit unbelievable is that she is like absolutely loving like her new life and adapting pretty well. Like she's making some like silly mistakes, but I think she's doing pretty well for herself so far. She's found like her old family home. She's going to set up a jam business, which is actually going to be a front for a spell shop because it's going to be kind of illegal. But yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. I'm enjoying the side characters that are showing up. There's this whole thing with this guy who's like a neighbor, and he has these merfish herd, which are like these half horse, half fish creatures, and she is already really trying to think of ways to help this place because the place is struggling. Sorcerers no longer go there. They've been ignoring the islands, and the islands need help basically to keep it flourishing. The merfish struggle to breed without the help of magic, so they're like probably going to be dying out if there is not some magical intervention soon. So she's like basically probably going to be figuring out how to do this magic with the stolen books, and she's already not really like too worried about doing that, which is quite funny. I'm enjoying this. It's feeling like a very easy read. I like the writing. It's not anything like amazing, but I'm enjoying it so far. Always a worry for me when it's a cozy fantasy romance, as particularly with straight romance for me, that I'm just not going to really like it. But so far, it's mostly just been kind of cute, and there hasn't been anything that is like too cringy. The guy seems just genuinely really nice, and it looks like he has real reasons to want to be helping her rather than him just being the nicest person ever. I'm liking this so far. It is indeed fitting the bill for this like cute cozy fantasy, and I'm having a good time with it. Okay, this is like the cutest thing ever. So the guy that she's interested is in like, I can make you bookshelves, and she's just like, that's the most perfect thing anyone has ever offered her. Better than jewels or a feast or a palace. And I'm just like, girl, same. Hello, I am here with an update. I feel like I didn't really update you much whilst I was reading this, but I just now finished the Spellshop, and overall I actually really liked this one. There were definitely some elements of it that I felt were like a little bit typical. We had like this one villainous character who was just kind of a caricature. There was another villainous character who thankfully did have more development, however, which I liked. And overall, yeah, this was really cute. It really did deliver on like the cozy fantasy. The romance was not too much of the plot, which I appreciated. It was very much a case of these two are very dumb and should clearly be together. But yeah, it didn't like overtake the plot, and I really enjoyed the themes of this, of our main character finding a home back at her roots. I enjoyed the side characters quite a lot, and overall, yeah, I had a really good time with this. I would definitely read more set in this world by the author. I know she does actually have not necessarily a sequel, but I think it's called The Enchanted Greenhouse or something, and it is the story of a character who was very briefly mentioned in this book, but who wasn't part of the main plot. And I am intrigued to see where that goes, because it was a character who originally, as far as we know, her story ended in tragedy. Yeah, and I do like the world building of this. The whole thing of the revolution was quite interesting, with magic being prohibited, with outer islands really having to heavily rely on help from the government in terms of magic to survive, because there are certain disruptions that the island cannot deal very well with. And I really enjoyed how our main character very much threw herself into helping the people out in the island, even though initially she was just trying to lay low. And yeah, it was just really cute. I had a good time with it. It wasn't like the best book ever. I've definitely read other cozy fantasy that I have enjoyed more, but I gave this like a high 3, I think overall a 3.75, and I had a good time with this. One of the more successful ones in this video, I think. I'm also very optimistic about the next book I'm going to be reading, which is The Marble Queen, the sapphic fantasy graphic novel that I have high hopes of liking that one, hopefully, but also no one's talked about it, so we'll see, I suppose. That is it for that one, the Spellshop. Finally read it, and on to other things. I may even pick up the sequel very soon because I actually have an audio arc for it. I got it like whilst I was reading it, and I was like, well, cool, I can just read more basically if I end up liking this. So yeah, that is the update. On to the next book. Hello, I thought I would update you because 2 of my next books for this project have arrived. Got The Marble Queen, which I'm probably going to read over the weekend as it should be quite quick. And The God of the Woods finally came in from the library. Been waiting weeks for this one. And I'm going to Glasgow at the start of next week, so I might take this along as my second read. I'm taking her on the 9th, but just in case I happen to get through it, because I have 2 really long train journeys, I'll take another book. Go to the Woods, I'll take with me. It feels like a good one to take for travelling. Hello, I don't know what this update is. It's been a very long day in Glasgow, but I figured I should give you at least a tiny update before I go shower and crash for the night, because I did start The God in the Woods. I am like this far through, not quite halfway, but not far off halfway. This book is kind of boring, not gonna lie. I can understand now why this was put in the historical category of the Goodreads Awards last year rather than the mystery thriller, because honestly, even though there is a mystery of sorts in that there's a mystery around these 2 kids that have disappeared, it feels a bit more like an emotional drama, to be honest. At the moment, we're switching through a lot of different perspectives. It's a bit hard to tell them all apart, to be honest. Curious if the audiobook has like multiple narrators or something, because we switch through so many different people. We're also going back and forth in time periods, which is fine. I'm not finding that too confusing so far. But overall, I'm just not finding this very interesting. It's definitely like a bit on the slow side, to be honest, which I understand because it's also on the longer side. I think this is like close to 500 pages. Just under 500 pages, which is like kind of long for a mystery thriller. I'm really not enjoying it that much, to be honest. I'm kind of tempted to DNF it, but I want to see if it goes somewhere good, so I think I'm gonna stick with it and try and get further at the very least, hopefully finish it. But yeah, I'm not having the best time of it, which I'm kind of sad about, because it was the only mystery thriller really that came out last year that I was kind of interested in. Hello, enjoy the creepiest decor ever I've had in a hotel room. I was very tired last night when I gave you that update. I just got back in after a whole day out, but I realized I didn't really tell you that much about the whole plot of this book at all. So before I leave to go and get my train, I thought I would give you like a little bit of a more in-depth review of where I'm at so far. So we're following like these 2 mysteries of sort. That I will say, this does read like a mystery. It doesn't read like a thriller, but it also reads just a lot like a drama to me, I think, in how it's being portrayed. We're switching between so many different perspectives. Most are female perspectives, and there is like 1 male perspective, I think, who is someone who was there at the time of the little boy's disappearance and kind of befriended the boy and taught him a couple of things, and he's clearly kind of being set up as being the scapegoat for the boy's potential murder. At this point, they haven't found him with where I'm at. But yeah, so we're kind of going back and forth through the timelines, following both the boy's disappearance and the girl's disappearance, who is the sister of the brother. So this is like 13 years later after the boy's disappearance. His sister has also gone missing at the camp. And we're seeing this from various perspectives. We're seeing this from the perspective of one of the camp counselors, from the girl's, the closest thing she had to a friend, at the camp, a girl called Tracy, who's kind of like an outsider but befriended Barbara, who's the girl who went missing. We're seeing from the mother's perspective, we're seeing her whole history really as to how she's got to where she is, how her mental state has deteriorated over time, particularly after the loss of her son, who she loved very much. She doesn't have the best relationship with her daughter. There's very much like the vibe that the daughter is kind of a substitute, I suppose, and they just don't really get on. Definitely got like the postnatal depression vibes from her. And a lot of it is about, from what I can see, men controlling women in the society. The whole thing with the mother is very much that she is in this very controlling relationship. She is not allowed to show feelings that she wants to feel, particularly towards her son, particularly about her son. Seeing like this high society thing, if you show this kind of affection, if you go against the wishes of what your husband wants you to be like, you're basically perceived as being insane. And she is taken to institution at one point. She's medicated and she's very alone through all of this and very alienated from everyone by her husband. It feels like she's very much seen as the outsider, kind of like how her daughter is, kind of like how Tracy is as well at the camp. Louise is probably one of the more interesting perspectives, I would say. She's about 19 and she's the counsellor for the hut, essentially, where Barbara disappeared from. And there's a whole thing going on with her, with like she's also in like this very toxic relationship with a rich boy who doesn't really acknowledge her as being someone that is in a relationship with to anyone but to her. So she is very alienated. She really feels the class difference between her and the family, and she is basically being lied to the whole time, it sounds like, and again being kind of made a scapegoat. So we're seeing this thing again in that the people outside of the family are the ones who are being scapegoated for the disappearances. It feels like I still really know yet about the disappearances, but there is some kind of things going on about the grandfather, and the boy was afraid of the grandfather. So I kind of feel like this is going towards just because it feels like that's where it should go, is that it's something to do with the family itself, to do with the disappearances rather than outside members. There's this whole thing with like a fugitive who was originally put away for the boy's disappearance and how he's on the loose again, and that's probably why Barbara's disappeared. But it feels a bit like a red herring to me. Like, we don't really know anything about this guy. We had one very brief perspective from him, I think. I don't know, it feels like it's very separate from the rest of the storyline, so I do feel like it's a bit of a red herring, and that it's more about the secrets of the family and this whole thing about how the family doesn't really play by the rules of the rest of society because they're rich and can pay their way out of it with connections and stuff. We did find out what the meaning of the title is as well. It was briefly mentioned of the God of the Woods is related to Pan, which then was talking about the root of the word panic. And there's this whole thing about how when you're lost in the woods, you sit down and you yell for help rather than panicking, rather than running around and getting more lost, and you wait for people to find you, essentially. So I feel like something more is going to come from that whole thing, because they've really kind of gone into that a lot. It's like one of the big rules of the camp. But yeah, I don't really know where it's going at the moment. We're still very much almost like the first day of the girl going missing at this point, and things are coming out. We're also following, I believe it's a Polish female detective from this, and she's like pretty much the first female investigator of the time. I quite like her perspective as well, actually, and she's doing a lot of this investigation. She's supposed to have an older detective who is mentoring her through it, but he is kind of suspicious and isn't really doing much, and it feels like she's doing all the work, to be honest with this. And then there's another character as well who keeps showing up as this character called TJ, who is coded in a very like lesbian kind of way, and we don't get her perspective. And I don't know, I feel like they're wanting to do something with her, maybe pointing her out as being a potential scapegoat as well. We will see, I suppose. But yeah, there's a lot going on with it at the moment because we're swapping back and forth so often. I don't really know where this is going, if the girl is going to get found. I hope so, because it's still early in the search, but I feel like with the girl being found, the mystery of what happened to her brother is probably going to come out as well, I would assume. That's where we're at at the moment. That is me trying not to spoil it too much, but that is kind of the general what is happening, lots of different perspectives and stuff going on. It took me a while to get used to that, and I think I've pretty much got all the different perspectives now, so I'm not too confused by that, but it does almost feel like one too many perspective, I feel like, and it is dragging the plot down. Again, this is quite long. I am unfortunately just kind of finding it to be a little bit boring in terms of things actually happening. It's a lot of talking and circling around things rather than actual plot events happening, it feels like. And I think that's what I'm struggling with this. It's definitely more of a slow story. It's described as being literary, but if I'm being honest, like, there's some nice turns of phrase in here, but not really a lot that's sticking out to me, I guess. Yeah, I am probably gonna finish it. I've decided I've got my like 4-hour train journey back. I'm over the halfway point. I ended up reading for like another hour or so last night and did find myself getting back into it again, so I want to see where it's going. But this is kind of feeling like a freestyle book to me at the moment, a book that I'm just gonna forget about once I've read it, which is a shame because this is one of the books I was most excited to try from last year because I wanted some kind of thriller mystery that was gonna be really good and stick with me, and I don't think it's this. Hello, just a very quick update to say that I did indeed finish The God of the Woods on my train back yesterday. I don't really have many other thoughts about this book, to be honest. It was fine. The ending was, I guess, satisfying, but I just wasn't really that invested, unfortunately. Mid-free, I think. Definitely, I say, more of a drama mystery, not a thriller mystery. I can see why it was in the historical fiction category over the thriller mystery category, I suppose. But yeah, definitely for me, wasn't really up to the hype it had, I think. Girl is going through it. So our girl Amelia is really not having a good time. She's being presented at a ball to be married off, essentially, to protect the kingdom, and this is basically how she feels, like she is just being wrapped up as a prize to be given to somebody. Her face when seeing the queen that she's obviously going to be paired off to, I mean, like, same girl, same. Hello, so I finished The Marble Queen, read this pretty much in one sitting. It wasn't particularly long. It was fine. The romance was cute, but this was very much more of a political story, which I kind of wasn't expecting. There was a very little bit of magic, but this was more about the struggles of the country that she's been married off to. Obviously, like, getting close to the queen and them actually having a bit of a romance, but it was a lot more about the politics that was going on between the regions and them kind of overcoming that together. It wasn't really that in-depth, I would say. Things happened very quickly, and I don't think I really felt super, like, emotionally invested, because there was kind of a major character death at one point, and it was sad in the moment, and then kind of not really went back to again. The conclusion also felt kind of very rushed with how they solved everything and dealt with the threat. Yeah, this was fine. I definitely liked the representation of anxiety that our main girl here deals with. Also that the other queen, Zelira, I think her name is, also kind of deals with anxiety a little bit, and they share that together. I like that, you know, the country itself was very diverse, that it was very queer normative, which was really nice to see. Unfortunately, this one wasn't as good as I was kind of hoping it was going to be. I really thought it was either going to be more fantasy or more romance or a rom-com, and it was very serious for a lot of it. There was a lot of like assassination attempts and that kind of thing. So yeah, it was fine. I'm happy I finally got around to reading it, but I know it's not one that I'm ever going to go back to. So yeah, I took this out from the library, thankfully. Well, on to the next book. So I started Where Sleeping Girls Lie yesterday by Farida BKE Amide. I'm like 150 pages in. I'm not loving it so far, I've got to say. I'm finding it a little bit boring, and also not really liking Sade as our protagonist. A lot of the characters seem very two-dimensional, including Sade, unfortunately. Like, we're getting hints that she's had some sort of dark past, but not really getting any reveals properly as to that yet, although she's seeing like the ghost of a dead girl who she's obviously haunted by, and she won't do competitive swimming anymore. But I'm also just having that annoying thing that happens sometimes in a mystery when you're a step ahead of the protagonist, and it's frustrating. So yeah, not having the best time with this so far. Hello, so I'm here to give you an update because I did in fact read and finish Where Sleeping Girls Lie last night, and this was okay. I think I've come to realise that this is the second book I read by this author. I read Ace of Spades, didn't love it. I gave it a 3-star. I thought it dealt with some really dark themes really well, and kind of feeling the same about this one, to be honest. It definitely felt like it was too long. This is like over 500 pages, which for a YA mystery is pretty long. I also think it dealt with some of the dark themes fairly well, although I can't say I found the ending super satisfying. I didn't really get that attached to any of the characters, although I think Sade definitely did get some much needed character progression, shall we say, that was revealed to us the further into the book we got, and I did end up quite liking Sade by the end of the book, but I just didn't really care all that much about the other characters, unfortunately. Again, I think it deals with some decent themes, definitely feels similar, to be honest, to Ace of Spades, just dealing with a different kind of aspect, because Ace of Spades deals with racism and homophobia within an institution, within a primarily white rich institution, and this deals with like sexual assault and misogyny within a primarily white rich institution. And if you know me, you know I don't really like stories that have sexual assault as like a main plot point. It did take quite a while to get to that point, thankfully. There was a lot more of the mystery before we got there, and as I said, I think it dealt with it a lot more sensitively than I've seen other books deal with. Ninth house, I'm looking at you. But yeah, in this book we're following new girl Sade. She started at this prestigious school after her parents have passed away, after her father specifically has passed away, and she kind of is struggling to fit in there, but ends up getting adopted by like the rich popular people essentially, and getting embroiled in that whole mess. There is sapphic representation, which I did like. I don't think it was like overdone or anything. I think it was just the perfect amount, and I also did like the other character who was involved in that relationship. She was also an integral part of the plot, which was good. Definitely not the worst, but unfortunately, yeah, this wasn't like the best thing I've ever read, and I'm giving it like a mid-3, I think. Again, a highly anticipated release that didn't really hold up to the hype that I kind of had for it, which is kind of disappointing. So we only have one book left now, and that's the horror, which I still have high hopes I will end up loving. Fingers crossed. Hello! So I started my final book for this video yesterday because I wasn't really feeling like reading anything else, so I was like, a short horror is probably what I'm in the mood for. So I am already like almost halfway through this. It's not particularly long and it reads really quickly. I'm not really sure how I feel about this so far now. It's not bad, but I'm just not really sure where it's going, to be honest. It's very much all about the paranoia of the main character, it kind of feels like. Although whether she's paranoid or not is another matter entirely, but she's definitely in kind of weird, eerie circumstances at the moment. She's very cut off from her partner. Basically, this is about this family that comes to this house that her and her girlfriend have just moved into with the aim of flipping it to resell it on, but she is kind of very much seen as being the weaker of the two in the partnership, being very anxious to speak up, of having her girlfriend kind of speak up for her, but she's trying to do better, and she's on her own when this family just shows up at her door. The father is like, hi, I used to live here, I'd love to show my family around. And she kind of gets a little bit guilt tripped into doing it, and then the daughter goes missing, and then it ends up being that the family stays there for longer than she is comfortable with, and things are starting to be weird in the house. Like, things are not exactly where they're supposed to be. She thinks there's a stranger in the basement, and throughout it all, in between the chapters, we're getting these little interludes of stuff that is about kind of strange phenomena in the area, it feels like, or is related to something weird that has just happened. So for example, we have this one here, which is a police report about this sergeant who sees an unidentified male midwinter just wearing a t-shirt and jeans, and then these like other strange people that are just in white suits, and then they vanish. So stuff like that. So I'm not like scared or anything at the moment, but it is kind of giving the eerie atmosphere, but I'm also just not really sure where it's going. There's this whole thing at the start, which, well, I'll show you, which kind of like suggests that something weird is with the house and that mystical things happen there, I suppose. But I've yet to really see evidence of this. It's also perhaps more than the house itself. Maybe the town is also kind of weird. So yeah, I'm just not really sure how I feel about this so far. I'm intrigued. I definitely want to carry on, but I don't really know what's happening at the moment. It's all just kind of eerie atmosphere, but nothing necessarily is explained yet. We'll see how I go with this one, I guess. So I finished We Used to Live Here. It did not take me long to read this at all. It was a really quick read. I honestly am not sure how I feel about this one. It was definitely not the type of horror I was expecting it to be. I was expecting it to go very much home invasion elements, and not so much. There's definitely some interesting mythos explored in this book. I can't really go too into detail because it's all spoilers really if I talk about this in depth. It definitely gave me like eldritch kind of vibes, I suppose, but I didn't really leave the book feeling particularly satisfied. It kept that eerie atmosphere all the way through. I don't think it was necessarily explored as much as I would have liked it to have been. I felt like it could have pushed further, and then maybe it would have been genuinely creepy for me. This was originally a short story on Reddit, I believe, and it is getting turned into a Netflix movie, and I feel like this is actually going to work really well as a movie. I'm actually very excited to see what this would be like as a movie, but as a book, I just don't know if it really worked for me. Really cool ideas, but it didn't really hit me. And as I said, I feel like we had lots of hints of various things, but it's almost like we started to go into something that was interesting and then we switched to something else. And I found that just a little bit frustrating because I would have just liked to have sat with some things a little bit longer and explored them. Interesting book. I don't think it's massively original in terms of its concept. I have seen similar things done before, but I do think it's a cool idea. I'm probably going to give this a high 3. I think I enjoyed it. Do I think I'm ever going to come back to this again? Probably not, to be honest, but I would try more by this author. I know he's got another book coming out next year, and like I thought the writing was good. I just wish there had been more happening really in this book. That is my thoughts on this book, which means I'm now finished with all the books I was going to read for this video of me righting my wrongs, and I've got to say, I don't think this was a very good success, to be honest. Not one of these books was a 4-star. Every single book I read, apart from the DNF, was a 3-star, which is kind of a shame. Like, I definitely did read a couple of books that I liked, but really, like, these were the books I was the most hyped about. I don't think any of them lived up to the expectations, apart from potentially the Spellshop, because I kind of had an idea it wasn't going to be my favourite book ever, but I still really enjoyed it. So yeah, if we have to rank these, I suppose we'll go from the worst to the best. I think obviously for me the worst was A Fate Inked in Blood because I DNF'd it. It really wasn't my kind of thing, which I did kind of have a feeling going into it. This was more one of those things that it was so popular last year that I just kind of wanted to see if it was for me or not, and it really wasn't. Then, really sadly, I'm gonna have to put the graphic novel, I think, The Marble Queen. This just really, again, wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And I didn't really enjoy what it ended up being. It had some really good representation in terms of mental health, diversity, LGBT inclusion, but it was just kind of okay and definitely something that I'm not going to remember in a few months' time, I feel like, which is unfortunate. Then I'm gonna go with Sociopath, I think. I gave this a mid-3. It was a difficult read, and as I mentioned, certain authenticity issues potentially with the author means that I feel like I can't rate this much higher. Definitely one that has stuck with me a little bit more, but overall, not a memoir I particularly enjoyed. Then I think I'm gonna have to go with The God of the Woods, also a mid-3. Just a very disappointing mystery, to be honest. It was obviously more of the literary kind of book, and that is just not something I particularly enjoy when it comes to mysteries. Just a little bit disappointing, didn't really end up doing anything spectacular. Then I think I'm gonna go with Where Sleeping Girls Lie. I gave that another mid-3. Definitely dealt with some dark issues and dealt with them in a good way, but I think maybe YA mystery thrillers are not for me. Again, I just felt a little bit disappointed coming out of that book. Definitely on the more well-written side though, I would say, of the books that I read in this video. Then my last mid-3 is A Tempest of Tea. One that, again, has not stuck in my memory. Like, I read this maybe 2 months or so ago now, and not a lot of it has stuck with me. I actually had to go back through my notes, and I completely forgot there was even that character called Flick in it, even though she's one of the main viewpoint characters. It was fine. As I said, I found it got a little convoluted towards the end, but I don't think I'm gonna bother picking up the sequel because, as I said, it's not one that stuck with me, unfortunately. Then I guess the last 3 books are the ones I liked the best in this video. They're all high 3s, almost hit that 4, but just not quite. I'm gonna say the one I just finished, We Used to Live Here. Just the overall sense of meh-ness, I guess, to me finishing it. I don't have a strong feeling about it other than that I wish it had done more. Interesting enough for me to rate it higher than some of the other books, but not enough for me to give it a 4, unfortunately. Then I'm gonna go with the romance. Kind of a surprise that this is one of the better ones in the video. Again, a high 3. I enjoyed it. It was cute. It's not something that's really going to stick with me, but it might actually be one I revisit if I just kind of want something cozy to read, I suppose. I really did like the setting of the flower farm and the 2 characters. And the final book then, which I guess is the best one for me this video, is The Spellshop, the cozy fantasy. Again, for me, both Late Bloomer and The Spellshop for me had really good settings, I think, which helped me get closer to the main characters. That is my overall ranking. I guess what I've learned is that maybe there's a reason why I didn't get to those books last year, even though they were my most highly anticipated. None of them were real winners for me, unfortunately, which is a shame. That is it for this experiment. Maybe I'll do this again next year, but given the success rate of this video, maybe not. So yeah, that is it for this video. Please let me know your thoughts down below. Did you think I was like completely wrong about how I thought of them? Are there maybe any other books that came out last year that you think I would enjoy that I gave a miss? Intrigued, because I was really sad to not get any winners in this video. But until next time, I guess, stay safe, stay cozy, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!